Finally, an answer to the age-old question, which comes first, the chicken or the egg roll? Easy! Just eat whichever one's closest. The Sensation Salad and Filet Sandwich Meal are back at Zaxby's. Both feature our famous hand-breaded chicken, crispy wontons, Asian slaw, and citrus vinaigrette. And each comes with its very own egg roll for a limited time only at Zaxby's. Order ahead, drive-thru, or get it delivered.
From Tally to Cali,
it's time
to wake up!
Wake up! Wake up! Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It is Wake Up Warchant, proudly presented by Zaxby's. Indescribably good. Check out our good friends all across the Tallahassee area, Southwest Georgia as well. Locations on Capitol Circle Southwest, Monroe Street, Appalachia Parkway, Thomasville Road, a.k.a. Bradfordville, which, I mean, we got to figure that out. Mahan Drive, Lafayette Street in Marianna, Florida, Peterson Avenue in Douglas, Georgia, and U.S. Highway 19 south in Thomasville, Georgia. I'm from a little enclave, Corey, called Eastlake. Like our high school is called Eastlake High School. The biggest neighborhood in the area is called Eastlake Woodlands, but our mailing address is Palm Harbor, Florida. But like you say Eastlake and people know what you're talking about. Like Bradfordville to me is like this really weird, I know they got a blues club in the middle of the woods, but like are they a real legitimate autonomous region?
Buddy, I do not know the answer to that. I like the way we've started the show, though.
Okay.
But I really don't know the answer to that. And I know it was the Bradfordville Blues Club that I think it got burned down or washed away a few years ago, and I'm not sure if they've reopened or not. I think they have, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what I'm sure of is that Zaxby's tastes great, and I still don't understand our constituency here, man. Florida State goes up and plays number 5 Notre Dame relatively close, 42-26 the final score. Notre Dame unable to cover. Florida State looks okay. You know, we mentioned on the show here, Corey, at least I said it, when we talked about the 21-point spread. It's going to depend on how it looks, how it feels, et cetera, et cetera. You know, my thing was like, yeah, you know, maybe it'll be like a 2-score game in the fourth quarter, and they're driving to cut it to a one-possession game, and maybe they turn the ball over, and you know Notre Dame gets a last final kind of sloppy score, they cover, and then you know that's the end or whatever. You posted kind of this informal, you know, question to your Twitter followers. I don't know how anybody could be that upset. The defense is horrible. They're terrible. We're going to spend lots of time talking about how horrible this defense is and how sad it is because they can't fix it right now, everybody. I don't think they can. But offensively, which is what this head coach is kind of tasked with, that's his specialty, they look pretty good, and I was very wrong, I think, about Jordan Travis. He looks to be more than serviceable. I know he got hurt, but I just think there's just, I don't know, maybe it didn't feel as close as the final score indicated, but I just don't get all the downtrodden sort of glum feelings right now in Florida State Seminole Nation.
Well, I wasn't getting those vibes, buddy, so I don't know where you're getting those from. That
War
poll
chant.
especially was like, the
People
poll was 93% positive.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know on Warchant, Tribal Council, a lot of people are upset that they can't get over the defense, I guess. They want us to ask more difficult questions as the media, et cetera, et cetera. Like, people are, like, really upset, and hey, man.
I just don't think that's the majority of the fan base.
Okay.
I think the majority of the fan base, that's a vocal minority. Now it makes up a good portion maybe of a message board, but it's a vocal minority that just wants this. I mean, I don't know what you expect. Like, what did you see in the Miami game that gave you any hope you were going to be able to slow down Notre Dame? It wasn't going to happen. You'd like them to at least show a pulse. I understand being upset and frustrated by it, but what is there to do? What is there to do? If your defensive linemen aren't going to beat blocks, what is there to do?
All right, let's not talk about
and that's where I'm at now with this defense. There, you could have Buddy Ryan, Belichick, whoever you wanted calling this defense. You could have a who's who of defensive coordinators. Now, would it be better? Sure. Probably, but only to a point. The ceiling is really low because you have defensive linemen that can't beat blocks ever. And you have linebackers that aren't any good. Whose fault is that? You know what I mean? Is that Adam Fuller's fault? I don't know. But it's a travesty how bad that front seven is. It's a train wreck. I don't even know how else to describe it. So you can look at the defense and be upset, but what good does it do? Like, at this point, it's weird. I get it. You're a Florida State fan. You're not used to judging a season or a game by incremental progress.
Yes, you are. It's been 3 years of this nonsense.
It's still, but obviously, it's still. You're still not. You still have hope. You still have hope that going into a season that you can win 8 or 9 games because these guys had some stars by their names when they got here. Well, these guys aren't stars. So Florida State since 1979 has won more games than any program in the country. They've had more 10-win seasons than anybody in the country. This is a fan base that isn't used to being okay with losing. So slowly but surely, you have to get into that mindset. Sorry, folks, that to judge you can't just judge this program on wins and losses right now. I was about to say that train had sailed. That train has sailed, folks. It's in the water, along with all the other vehicles I've used for analogies. So you have to judge it by incremental progress, sadly. I know that's not what you're used to. It's not what you want to do. But is this team better than it was 2 years ago when it played Notre Dame? Did they fight more? Absolutely they did. Are they better than they were 2 weeks ago when they played Miami? Of course they are. That's all you can judge it on. Look, they're a 9-point underdog to North Carolina this week. They have a chance maybe if the offense can score 40 to have a chance to win the game. But I'm not expecting great things there. But I'm expecting them to look better than they did against Miami and to look better than they did against Georgia Tech. That's what this coaching staff is tasked with right now. You've just got to you've got to put out the fire. In the last 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years have been a fire. So that Notre Dame game, it looked like they got a little bit of they got an extinguisher and at least got some, I don't know, would you use a dumpster fire, would you use an extinguisher or water? I guess you'd use water, right?
You need like Chernobyl. You need those helicopters with boron, like pouring.
Yeah, it's a big fire. I don't know if it's a nuclear reactor fire yet, but it's a big fire. But it seemed like they started to put some of it out. That to me was the encouraging sign, is that Notre Dame had to play 4 quarters. Their starters were in the game at the end of the game. And if they score, if Travis doesn't get his hand hurt, because I think that affected the way he played the last part of that drive. If they go in and score right there, they have a chance to make it a 1-score game with like 6 minutes to go at Notre Dame, which any of us would have been okay with before the game started. So that's what you're just going to have to. This team isn't winning more than 3 or 4 games this year at the absolute most. So get that through our heads already. The best you're going to do is 4-7, probably. This defense is just too bad, and especially if your quarterback's hurt. So I think you're looking at a 3 or 4 win season. But is this team going to be incrementally better than it was at the beginning of the season? Because that hasn't happened here in a long time, and I think you just have to change the way you view this team for now. It's hard. If you're going to judge it just by wins and losses, you're going to be really upset for the rest of the year.
I didn't want to start with the defense. Is that you paying me back for talking about the geography of the greater Tallahassee area at the start of the show?
No, man. I thought that's what we were getting into. Because that's the only way. You can't look at the offense and be upset.
No, I don't want to be upset. I thought this was going to be a pretty uplifting show. I was excited for it.
No, I was talking about the people that you're reading about on the message boards that are upset. I get the defense is a train wreck, and there's nothing to be happy about. It's not like I'm saying Adam Fuller is doing a good job, but we're going to have to get to the point where just like, look, this is what's going to happen. You have a Big 12 team. That's how it is for right now. If you're going to win games, you're going to have to score in the 40s to win games. That's how it's going to be. What do you think Sam Howell is going to do to this defense? You're going to be lucky to hold them under 40 points. So know that going in.
It's like we're talking like Aaron Rodgers about to show up in town, but still, I mean,
but it basically good. Is.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not going to be able to hold them down. They're going to score 5 or 6 touchdowns, almost certainly. But will you be in the game in the fourth quarter? Will you compete? Will you make some plays? Does the offense look like it has an identity? And now, it does. So, it is what it is. I get being upset because the defense is awful. But I do think there was reason for encouragement, not just because the offense looked so good, but because, they got that stop at the end of the game. They did keep it within 2 scores. They only allowed the 1 touchdown in the second half. They did fight a little bit. They did bench Jaden Large-Woodby because of that ridiculous personal foul. They did essentially bench Corbin because of that ridiculous penalty on the punt. Those things are still flying because they still keep happening, but you can see there's at least punishment for dumb mistakes, which is a plus.
All right, that's a wrap on the show. Thanks for listening, everybody. It's been Wake Up
You got it, guys.
I just think that the way, again, that Mike Norvell talked about this team, last time we heard from him was Wednesday. He was not happy at all with this team, the way they practiced or executed or focused. And you kind of like, who are you trying to fool? Like, who are you trying to kid here? Trying to make these guys, trying to convince them that they're about to go up and play number 5 Notre Dame and be able to win that football game. And then you hear the way that he kind of talked, the tone of his voice afterwards, as though, Florida State was the number 5 team in the nation. They just lost to an unranked team. Just to kind of hear how disappointing he was. For him to push them the way he did in practice, and I'm going to ask them this later today, Monday, as you're listening to the show, everybody. I mean, not like, some big thing to tune into, but I didn't want to ask him in the immediate aftermath of the game. But just for him to set that kind of expectation, to challenge this team, that, hey, we're going up to Notre Dame to win this game. And, again, everybody can laugh and cackle. Like, what do you expect them to do? Go up there and just have fun. Hey, man, some coaches want obviously every coach wants their team to win, but they're going to have different ways of trying to set that expectation or get there. Some of them might think that, hey, we need to play loose. Let's not kill them in practice this week. Let's just try to, keep it loose and light, and then we'll see if we can maybe get some crazy things go our way up there. Like, he pushed them hard in practice. They went up there and got smacked in the mouth practically from Jump Street. Notre Dame really is the one who got in their own way and kept this a ball game. But credit to Florida State for taking advantage of the turnovers, of the moments. The fact that they fought like that and had every reason to fold, and it seems like they did on defense, but they did it offensively, is extremely encouraging. That drive to start the second half was the best drive in terms of execution, look, call, and relative to the importance of a football game. And then I don't know. I can't remember how important it was. Maybe like the Florida game in 2017 or something. They did not execute at a high level on offense at any point, it feels like, in the last 2.5 years.
Not against good teams.
Yeah, not
so
against
I looked
good
it
teams.
up. So the last 5 times they had played a top 5 team, going back to, I think, 17 against Clemson, the halftime scores were 17-0, 30-7, 28-0, 32-6, and 28-0. Those were the last 5 halftime scores when they played an elite team. This score was 35-20. Now, again, 35 points is way too much, but it was still a game.
Yeah.
It wasn't over at halftime. That is a step. It's not the step that we all want, but you can't run until you walk, people. You can't run until you walk. I don't know how many times I've told you that, Aslan. So yeah, that's a step. Might not be a huge step, but it's a step to be in a game at halftime against a good team. And then, like you said, to immediately take the second half kickoff and go down the field and score. And frankly, if Norvell hadn't bumbled his way through the final 2 minutes of the first half, they could have almost tied up the game. Like there's no, and I think he's a good coach. But I'm never going to let something as dumb as what he did in the final 2 minutes of that second quarter go by just because they fought well.
What did he do? I don't even remember.
It's 28-17. They have a 1st and 10, I think, at the 12 with 1:40 left. He ends up running about 12 seconds off the clock. Incompletion, sack, timeout by Notre Dame. You kick the field goal. You give them plenty of time to go down the field and score. Notre Dame only had 1 timeout.
Right, okay.
If you run the ball twice, then the best they can do is get the ball back with about 25 seconds left, up 28-20. Now, I get it. The first down play, you want to take a shot. It's Terry one-on-one. It's not a great throw, and Terry, frankly, doesn't run a great route, although Terry had maybe his best game at Florida State, certainly his best game of the year. I thought he was great. But he didn't really run a terrific route, and the kid broke it up or it was a bad throw. So I get on first down. If you can get the points, if you can get a touchdown, if you think you got to play, do it. Second down, I think it was an RPO because it looked like Travis was throwing to McDonald, and McDonald thought he was blocking. So there was miscommunication there. But as I said on the call-in show last night after the game with Tom Lang and Gene Williams, Take the P and the O out of that. You can't give him the option to pull it right there and throw it. It's got to be a run. You've got to know the score. You've got to have an awareness. You know that they've run through your defense like it's not even there. So why give them a chance to go score a touchdown with 10 seconds left? They wouldn't have done it. So that to me was just a mistake by Norvell to not at least make them. They only had one timeout. The third down play, they get a sack and they call the timeout. Well, you know what? If you'd have run it 3 times, you're either scoring on the final play of the half or you're kicking a field goal and going into the halftime 28-20, and then you take that opening kickoff and you march right down the field. Oh boy, you got some real game pressure on Notre Dame. Now, they would have gone right down the field on your defense most likely anyway, but that was, I thought Norvell had a really good game plan. I really like the direction that he stopped this program from going in. I don't want to necessarily say I like the direction it's going in, but I like that it's stopped from being going straight downhill. He seems to have put the brake on. That's a positive. That was just a bad 2 minutes for him. You've got to be better there. But yeah, I like the way that I texted you after the game or during the game. You and I were like, why is he calling these timeouts at the end? You remember that?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here, man? Let's get off the field and go home. But he was trying to win the game. It was still technically a 2-score game, and if you get a stop there, like you did, now you would have liked to get the stop earlier, but if you get the stop there and go down, crazier things have happened. So anyway, I'm not ripping on Norvell. I do think he's done a pretty good job so far, but that was troubling there in the final 2 minutes of the way he handled that clock.
That's interesting. I don't recall like feeling anything egregious happen in the game in terms of like game management. That's fair though. I mean, yeah, you don't want to leave any time on the clock. You got
to start coaching towards your team, right? You're the head coach.
Yeah.
Like it's not just about scoring as many points as possible. You realize your defense is an utter embarrassment, and you need to keep them off the field if you can. And you had a chance there to do what Jimbo was so good at: score to go into the half, score to come out of the half, because you're getting the ball to start the second half. You could have scored 10 points there, 14 points theoretically, without them ever touching the ball. But instead, you threw 2 incompletions, stopped the clock, kicked a field goal with a minute 10 or whatever it was left, and of course Notre Dame went right back down the field. And of course Jaden Larswoodby made the dumbest penalty of the season.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, he's, you talk about him using those timeouts at the end of the game. I think that's him still trying to play to win. Now maybe you can be a little bit more, have a bigger picture look at it and really do try to bleed the clock out. But I think he was trying to go for a touchdown there, and, he's got to throw the ball. And then on third down, they run it obviously just to at least maybe knock one leg out from under.
Well, no, they didn't. Offense. It was another pass, but he scrambled. It was a sack. It was like basically a sack. Like it was another pass call. That I don't understand in that spot why you'd throw the ball. You drop back 3 times from the 12. That's not really your game anyway. I think most of the times when they get inside the 10 or 15, Travis gives you that. He's pretty dynamic with his legs. Use those there somehow. You just can't risk giving the ball back to Notre Dame. That's all. But it didn't matter. It's not like they were going to win either way. But I was not pleased with that clock management. And heaven knows I ripped Willie every time he did something like that. So I feel like I
keep that same energy. Same. You're keeping that same energy as a kid.
I got to, because that's my standard, Aslan.
Yeah,
I'm not lowering my standard. Yeah, the standard's the standard. Norvell hasn't lowered his apparently. So I'm not going to lower mine either. Be better with the clock, Mike.
I just wonder if I was equally as wrong about this defensive line, the interior, as I have been about Jordan Travis. Because after the Georgia Tech game, which is how terrible this offense had looked, my whole thing was, man, if he doesn't get one of these freshman quarterbacks, and obviously I think Chubba's the more skilled of the two, I just don't see how the season works out to where he has anything positive to sell, market, and to recruit, and then you have basically nearly 4 straight recruiting classes that are completely underwhelming for the expectations of this program and any sort of hope of reaching and catching up with Clemson. But man, part of me was like, man, Jordan Travis is going to totally get exposed against a really good defense. They'll figure out this whole run first kind of mentality. They'll take it away from him, force him to throw the ball, and then he'll have to throw into tight windows. Balls will get batted around, and he'll throw interceptions. Jordan Travis is like a high-functioning quarterback, I think. I'm not trying to hot take myself back. I don't think that is either. That's tongue-in-cheek. But my whole thing was just I can't believe that a $1 million coordinator like Kendall Browse would sit there and pretty much just watch his family name, at least when it comes to executing offensive football, just look totally horrible the way it did for large parts of last season, and not put a guy that seems to have maybe a little bit of a dynamic skill set in there. And then Travis, seems to have been a third-string guy going into the opener, although Rodemaker didn't see the field against Georgia Tech. But if his hand's okay, that was his first start. It was at Notre Dame. Now, there wasn't a big crowd, but that was a number 5 team in the nation. I know they're coming off several weeks of a layover. But it just gives you kind of hope that if they can execute with him, this thing is going to get better week over week. And I don't know, maybe they can beat North Carolina. Pitt certainly doesn't look as scary as they once did. Louisville doesn't certainly look as scary as they once did. Virginia is a winnable game. NC State looks a little bit more challenging than we might have expected, but still a winnable game. Duke's a winnable game. I don't know, man. 3 is a very low bar. I know we're sitting here with only 1 win right now. But I don't know, Jordan Travis, I think, gives me a lot of hope that they can actually get this thing kind of turned around this season, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I think he's. I don't think it's a fluke. I think he's a good player. My concern with him will continue to be and will always be staying healthy. Because for him to be effective, he's going to have to take hits. If he can't, I know he said he's got to get better about getting down and not taking unnecessary hits. Well, that's his game, man. If he starts sliding 3 feet short of the first down, then you what's the point? You just got to be a guy that gets you that runs and gets first downs. You're gonna have to wear it a little bit, and hopefully that you stay healthy. But in this offense, with this offensive line, his running ability is too much of a necessity for him to be one of those guys that runs for 7 yards and slides. He's got to run for 12 because he also, the thing about him, if it's one-on-one with the defender, most quarterbacks do slide. Well, he can get by that defender and turn a 12. We've seen it. He can turn a 12-yard run into a 50-yard run. So it shouldn't be really in his thought process. Now, there are times when it's 3-on-1, yeah, slide. But it's 1-on-1, man, he needs to run. He's a running back that can throw. And I think moving forward, he made some really nice throws to Terry. Yeah. I thought he made a nice throw to Toafili to start the game. That was pretty on the move. Just kind of flicked it down there. He left some things out there with his arm. He's not incredible with the arm, but he's not terrible. He's good enough. I think we've seen that now. He is definitely good enough to move the ball with this offense. And look, man, they should have had 5 touchdowns against Notre Dame. When have we ever said that? So again, that should give you hope moving forward, right? He might be the guy. I brought this up. Was I talking to Ira? About his brother went through the same thing in the minor leagues. Yeah. His brother was just this guy, almost like a stopgap. He was a 12th round pick or whatever he was, 14th round pick, I think by the Tigers, and then got traded to the Blue Jays. But every level he was at, rookie ball, single A, double A, he was just the guy that, oh man, he's hitting pretty well for not being a prospect. And they kept trying to move guys past him. There were other prospects in the organization that were bigger deals than Devin Travis. But Devin Travis, finally they looked around and it's you know what? Every year this guy hits 310 and slugs 500. Maybe he's our prospect. And then soon enough, yeah, he made the team and was going to be an all-star until he got hurt. And his injuries turned into what they did, and he's out of baseball now. But Jordan Travis, for so long, we're hey, he's a nice little piece. He can do something with his legs, but he's just not going to be that guy. Right. Well, maybe he is that guy. Because when was the last time a quarterback played that well against that type of defense? When's the last time a quarterback had 2 games in a row like Jordan Travis just had? It has to be Jameis, right?
Yeah,
I'm talking about Florida State quarterbacks.
Yeah. No,
obviously,
I'm trying to think. I don't know if Francois ever strung together 2 back-to-back.
He might have. Maybe the Ole Miss game and something else, but he's played the quarterback position as well as we've seen it played in a long time. We'll put it that way. So instead of just wondering, kind of lamenting maybe what he can't do well or wondering when Chubba's going to take over, you might just have yourself a quarterback here. And, it certainly looks like it. Again, he misses the throw to McDonald. That's a walk-in touchdown. I don't know. If you look at the replay from behind him that they showed, McDonald was running towards the pylon, and he was so open, and I don't know that he knew how open he was. I think Travis tried to just throw it towards the middle of the field where nobody was, and he just didn't turn around on it in time. I'm not saying it was a good throw, but I don't think he missed him by 8 yards. I think he thought he would turn back into the field. He was just trying to throw him into the middle of the end zone. It didn't work out. But that's the one he'd like to have back because that's a touchdown and that gets it to a one-score game. But again, when you start feeling good about this offense, it's 42 to 26 at that time. The game is still very much on the line, and your offensive staff and your players have executed to a level where you have a tight end wide open in the end zone to cut this game to one score, perhaps in the fourth quarter at Notre Dame. Again, this is stuff we haven't seen. It's not good enough, but it's the stuff we haven't seen here in 3 or 4 years. So that's why I'm encouraged by it, and I think the guy can play, man. I think the guy can play. I want to see how he handles adversity when he throws maybe an interception or has a fumble or has a couple bad drives in a row. He hasn't really had to deal with that much, but I've really liked what I've seen from him overall.
Absolutely, man. I missed a tick. I totally undervalued Jordan Travis. Again, shout out to Gene. I mean, Gene again had Jordan Travis highest ranked on his Warchant preseason top 40.
Like, how is he like an elite runner? Because when you watch him, he's fast, but he's not electric fast. He's not like, oh my God, look at that. But guys he always makes a guy miss. He's slippery. He gets out of sacks. He turns, what should be 6-yard runs into 12-yard runs. And that was a good defense. It wasn't Jacksonville State. So, the way he ran last year against real defenses, he might be a legitimately really, really good runner. On top of if he can make the right decisions and throw the ball where it needs to be, I think you got a dynamic guy back there, man.
Yeah, and credit to the offensive staff for first off cutting ties or kind of cutting bait with James Blackman when they did. Again, kind of odd again that they went with Tate Rodemaker to start that Jacksonville State game instead of Jordan Travis, but we're told that he was injured and maybe didn't practice as much as he would have hoped to for that week, and obviously he did not practice much during fall camp, missed the first 2 scrimmages. But the fact that they've kind of been able to tailor an offense around him, I mean, I don't think these aren't sort of plays and concepts they had ready to that James Blackman wasn't able to run properly,
Yeah.
And James couldn't run the offense that Jordan's doing right now anywhere near this effectively. But I think Jordan can, maybe eventually they'll be able to put more of their identity on what they want to do. But in the meantime, man, they're making this thing work. 26 points against Notre Dame is, again, the defense did not hold their end of the bargain even remotely close to what you would hope it was going to be. But, they got a good eye with LaDamian Webb. I think he's clearly your number 1 back now.
Yeah.
13 carries. Toafili had 3. Corbin had 2. I don't know how much of Corbin's. I mean, he had the sledgehammer. He was supposed to have the best week of practice, and he does the whole running into the, catcher on the fair catch. So I don't know. And then Terry again has stacked together 2 good weeks after he kind of had a little blow up with Coach Dugans against Miami. Comes back against Jacksonville State, has a pretty good game. 9 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown. And that's kind of what we were hoping to see from him on a
but also
basis.
Making tough catches.
Oh yeah, man, yeah.
Not just I'm wide open down the field because I'm an incredible athlete and I can run by this guy, but catches in traffic, catches when it matters, tough catches where he's still getting hit. I just think that was as well as he's played. You hope he keeps playing and doesn't say, "Here's my film, guys. Peace out. I'll call your name on Monday Night Football." But I think that's a step for him, a big step for him going into the season, or going for the rest of the season. Because, dude, that's a game breaker out there. And if you can depend on him to make the 6-yard tough catches as well as the 50-yarders, that's a whole different deal. But yeah, Webb, man, I love Webb.
Yeah.
I love Webb.
Yeah.
He's just got something to him. He took. Ira was talking about it. He took that vicious hit. Which was, that was a bad read by Travis. It was also a great play by that dude to just trigger, to know it was coming and just to trigger like that. That's just a well-coached, really good football player that lit up Webb like that. But then he comes right back in, and now they should not have given him the ball right after that, but they did, and he's still spinning out of contact and still getting positive yards when there wasn't a lot there. And the way he blocks, the way he just bounces off guys, as hard as he runs, as hard as he plays, I like that guy a lot, man. I think that guy's the future of that position. I like Toafili still as well. But yes, you're right. I think they've figured out that Webb is the guy that they want to get the ball to the most. And whether it was the running into the punt catcher or the fact that that drive after Notre Dame went to score to go back up by two scores, and then on 2nd and 10, I think Wren had the ball hit off his face mask, so Florida State had to start at the 12 on the kick return. There is an enormous hole on 2nd down. I mean, it is just as dialed up perfectly as can be. It's a shotgun snap. They pretend they're going to throw it for half a second, and then he hands the ball to Corbin, and there is a huge hole. It's a great the line does a good job, and it's a great play call. It should get, with a special running back, it should get 25 yards. Instead, the first guy that can tackle Jashawn Corbin tackles Jashawn Corbin. He got as many yards off that play as you would have. Like, literally. He just ran until somebody got near him, and that guy tripped him up. I think that was the last time Corbin saw the ball that game, obviously. It might have been the last time he was in the game. Because, like they talk about, man, you can't coach every yard. You've got to have somebody that just goes and makes special plays occasionally. Jordan Travis is doing that, slipping out of sacks on the quarterback run game. He's doing a really good job of that. LaDainian Webb does a great job of that. Corbin, so far, not so much. And I think if LaDainian Webb takes the carry right there, or Toa Feely, that's a big play, and that drive continues. Instead, it was a 3-and-out.
Maybe even Ja'Kai Douglas. Ja'Kai Douglas had a nice catch out the backfield. Is a nice kind of, change of pace guy who's been contributing here and there. So, they've shown a good eye in terms of getting the guys that want at running back. I mean, the offensive line, there was a moment in the game where one of Notre Dame's 5th freaking year seniors was down on the field. He was down on his knees, injured. And he was down on his knees, had his hands on the field, and you could just see how broad his shoulders were. And he, Dungy mentioned that he's in the midst of a year-plus streak where he hasn't surrendered one single sack.
Right.
He's a 5th-year guy. Leave already. And then you think about poor Robert Scott. Robert Scott's literally probably 19 years old. He might even still be 18. He could still be 18 for all we know, but probably 19. And he's the starting right tackle out there. But they're making this work. I mean, Travis, there was pressure on him, but he was able to kind of feel it and get away from it.
Yeah.
The run game kept Notre Dame honest to a certain degree. I mean, again,
absolutely.
None of this is ideal, but I don't think, we all realize, some people more than others, hey, this is going to be a real big rebuilding project. I'll give them all the time. I'll be patient this time around versus the people who want to win immediately. We still kind of realize what he's hamstrung with offensively. And the fact they were able to make it work in that situation against that team, again, I mean, to me, it's just extremely encouraging. I don't know. The defense is so bad, it's almost easy for me to be like, that defense is so unconscionably bad, I don't even want to talk about them. I'm just going to focus on the offense.
Yeah, but in if the offensive line, if you take away the sack yardage, Florida State ran for 199 yards. They ran for 200 yards at Notre Dame, essentially. Yeah. Again, the quarterback is everything. When you have a quarterback that isn't a threat to run on the zone read, which James Blackman never was, through no fault of his own, he's just not that fast.
And DeAndre Francois wasn't either.
And Francois wouldn't do it either. So when you know that the running back is going to get the ball every time the quarterback sticks it into his belly, your offensive line has no chance. Jordan Travis has changed the game. He's changed the offense with his ability to run, and it just makes them harder to defend. And Brian Kelly said that afterwards. I watched his press conference. He was asked about Travis, and he's like, look, they did a really good job of coaching to his strengths. And they did some things, he's like, they did some things we hadn't seen. He's a good player, and he's hard to tackle. And then he also lamented the fact that they hadn't played in 3 weeks, and that had something to do with it. And 10 days ago, they had 36 guys that weren't available. So he lamented that, but he also talked about Jordan Travis. It was like, yeah, he's a good player, and he's hard to tackle. Which is true. Florida State has a good player at quarterback. They have let me put it this way. We don't know yet how good he is. He might just lay a complete egg the rest of the season. For all we know, his hand's broken. Who knows? Hopefully we'll find out tomorrow, and hopefully that's not true. And even if it is broken, Jordan, suck it up, my man. Throw it left-handed. Headbutt those passes if you have to. You need to be on the field. But Florida State isn't at a supreme disadvantage at the quarterback position anymore. They also now have a guy that can go make plays. I don't think he's as good as Sam Howell. I know he's not as good as Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's probably as good as Ian Book. But he's not completely dominated at that position. You are not getting dominated at that position like you had been the last couple years. You actually have a guy that can go make plays.
And you have a staff that knows how to utilize it.
Absolutely.
Which,
and that, again, that is encouraging.
Yeah.
It's not we don't know if Jordan Travis is the answer. I don't know that he'll be starting in November or in 2021. But the big picture thing that we got to focus on is this coaching staff identified him finally, and he got healthy enough to be identified, and they catered a game plan around them where they got 400 yards and should have had 5 touchdowns at Notre Dame. That, to me, is incredibly encouraging. Now on to the defense.
One last thing offensively I want to mention. I don't know. We don't talk about it enough, and I don't really know. I guess maybe Jordan Travis is another thing that he kind of covers, kind of conceals your weaknesses. But I don't know how, if Terry can keep doing this week in and week out, fantastic. Imagine if somebody else opposite him could do something. I mean, I still don't know. Bless Pokey, but I still don't know how dynamic and how big of a game breaker Pokey is.
How about Warren Thompson with the big 4th down catch?
All he does is catch first downs, man. That's all he does.
That's good to see.
I mean, it sure would be nice if him, I still don't know if Pokey really has a skill set to really, just create strain and stress on the back end of defense the way that Warren Thompson could. Maybe Jordan Young to a certain degree, although he's got to get a little bit more, I don't know, he's got to figure out to get in somebody's way when plays start breaking down. But, yeah, I mean, if they had a second legitimate receiver, that would help out too. But, they're making it all work. Now, what's not working.
And I think Cam McDonald should be that guy. I think he's that guy, and he wasn't utilized all that much or all that well against Notre Dame. But I think he's probably your second best weapon in the passing game. Yeah. You got to try to find a way to get him more involved. And, again, he's wide open for a touchdown. He just got missed. But I think he's a guy moving forward. The other guys are just going to have their roles, but I think if Jordan Travis is your quarterback, I think you're throwing it 20 to 25 times a game, and that's it. And 8 or 9 of them are going to be going to Terry. A few of them are going to be going to running backs. It's those other 7 or 8 sprinkled around where you hope one of the other receivers can get open and make a big play. Now on to the defense, right?
Yeah. I was going to say they're shortening the bench on offense. Only 19 players played, and
I noticed that.
Blackman's one of them too. So. But, yeah, about the defense. I just don't – the thing is, I don't want to sit here and spend time talking about things that I have no idea how to fix. I mean, not that I really would know either way, but they don't have the personnel. They don't. They have nobody at defensive end. I tweeted this. It's like what they have on the defensive end is the equivalent of having a quarterback who's like 280 pounds but can't throw the ball 10 yards down the field. Like, you're obviously not going to get a lot of runs from a overset heavy quarterback like that. And if he can't throw the ball, what are you going to get? The defensive ends cannot speed rush, and they cannot set the edge. Like, they physically are incapable. Derek McClendon cannot. Janaris Robinson cannot. Josh Kando, no speed rush. I mean, I almost feel bad for Josh Kando, because if I was 6'7", 260 pounds, and had the world in my hand, and in over 45 snaps, I could not just once. Again, the over/under was one half sack on Ian Book. None. Nunca.
Yeah. One tackle for loss.
None.
I think he was hit 3 times.
How?
The whole game.
I don't know what and again, that's for the defensive staff to figure out. Maybe it's for me as a media member to figure out a way to ask a question to figure out what they're going to do. But I don't even know how much of it falls on the interior. Corey Durden and Marvin Wilson are probably not happy with the way their seasons are going right now. But the way the defensive ends play, and then your linebacker play outside of Amari Gaynor, is just so inadequate. It's embarrassingly bad almost how bad they've missed on linebackers. And this goes to Jimbo as well. We've talked about it. Telvin might be, Telvin or Terrence Smith was like your last truly very good, borderline great linebacker. Telvin more so than Terrence Smith. I have no idea the only thing I think of asking Adam Fuller is, like, at some point, do you ask these guys what they feel they can run, and then maybe you work something around that? I don't know, man. Janaris and Derek McClendon had 2 bad sort of plays where I think Janaris just runs right in, just head down, whiffs on the first touchdown.
I can't even imagine what he was doing. Can't even fathom what he was doing right there on that particular play to just give him the whole outside. I mean, it wasn't even like a fake to the fullback in a pitch. It made no sense. It made no sense what he was doing. The way the defensive line has played has been embarrassing. And to their standard, relative to their standard. So I'm looking at it right now. Marvin Wilson is the 11th ranked defender on Florida State's team right now through 4 games on Pro Football Focus.
Oh, look at you looking it up. I like it.
Wasn't
Corey.
he one of the most highest ranked players in the country last year?
Yeah.
And now he's 11th on his own team.
On a really bad defense, right?
On a horrible defense. Like DeKalen Brooks is number 2, so we throw him out. And then I think, who else? Brownlee, Glenn, we can throw those guys out. Sidney Williams, because they haven't played enough. Well, Brownlee has. But of guys that have played 60 snaps this season, he's still 8th. Behind like 5 or 6 other starters. What is going on, man? Corey Durden is 20th. Kane Doe's 17th. I'm not going to even go down and look where J-Rob is, but he's not on the first 23 because he's not on my screen. And it's not worth scrolling down to find him. But when your defensive line is that bad, when it was supposed to be a strength, you wonder what's going on.
And it wasn't just us, everybody. Like, we hype him up, but like what they said after
Marvin
practices.
Wilson's supposed to be a first-round pick, too. Like, we're not the ones saying that.
Yeah.
The NFL guys are saying that. They're the ones that are hyping him up as a possible first-round pick. Tirico even said it Saturday night. Man, that guy has done squat through 4 games. I know he was suspended for essentially 1 game with the targeting, but he's done essentially squat, and I just don't understand it. I looked it up. So last year, through their first 3 games against FBS schools, so I didn't count who'd they play. I guess I should have counted Louisiana Monroe. I didn't. So I didn't count Louisiana Monroe last year. I didn't count Jacksonville State this year. So their first 3 games last year against FBS schools compared to this year. Last year, Wilson and Durden through the first 3 games combined for 27 tackles, 7.5 for loss, 5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. This year, 15 tackles, 0 for loss. And that's a wrap. Corey Durden had 4 in this game Saturday night, which is incredible. I didn't remember him making 1, but he had 4. Marvin Wilson had as many tackles in that game on Saturday as Devontae Love-Taylor did. What do you do, man? What can Adam Fuller do? These guys are supposed to be special. They want to play in the NFL for a long time. They can't beat a block. Like, they can't make life miserable for teams. You know, and I know teams, you can game plan around a couple of defensive tackles, but that doesn't mean, like, even if they're not putting up huge stats, they could still do their job and do it well. And I know Pro Football Focus, we can put however much stock we want into that. Well, Fabian Lovett is your 3rd best player this year. I think Fabian Lovett's played pretty darn well. Why is he your best defensive tackle and not these 2 guys? What if these 2 guys were playing at Fabian Lovett's level? Again, I don't know that your defense still isn't even good, even average by any stretch. But, man, you might get into some 2nd and 12s. Notre Dame had 3 third downs the entire first half yesterday. That's because you're getting obliterated on 1st and 2nd down. These guys want to play in the league, and they get pushed around like that. I don't understand it. Because it's not like they can't play. We've seen it. So what do you think it is? Like, why they're out there. They care enough to be out there. They care enough to practice and to play. And you see Marvin on the sideline. He's engaged.
I mean, I see him during the games. He's getting doubled sometimes, but he's still I mean, there was one play where he's getting doubled. The play kind of runs to him, bounces outside, and he sheds off and chases the guy pretty much all the way to the field side of action, and then like has to run off the field because that's his time to come off and sub out because they're like on a hard rotation and substitution. Yeah, I mean, he's trying. I don't know if they're being asked to have like more than one gap responsibility, if that's freezing them up mentally, maybe it's hard to imagine that he physically now can no longer take on double teams. I mean, he was getting double teamed last year as well, but it wasn't slowing him down the way it has this year.
And if he's getting double teamed still, which I don't know that it's all the time anymore, but if he is, then that should free up Durden.
Yeah.
Or whoever the other guy is. And it certainly is not freeing anybody up. And they're just not having an impact at all. And it's been frustrating to watch. It's because I think you know, I think some of the guys out there are really trying hard. I do. And I'm not saying that they're not trying hard, but there's got to be a reason for them to be so less productive and so less noticeable this year than they were last year. They don't make any plays. Last year they made, like I said, they had 7.5 tackles for loss combined. Now that might not seem like a huge number through 3 games, but it's a defensive tackle. You're not putting up a huge number. So far this season, neither one of those guys has a single tackle for loss through 3 games. I'm not counting Jacksonville State. I don't remember if they did anything against them anyway. I guess Marvin had a sack. So is that it? You're going to only sack Jacksonville State's quarterback? But against Notre Dame, nothing? I don't know. It's befuddling because it's not like we hype these guys up based on what they did in high school and they just ended up being that good. We've seen them be very good. We've seen them both be dominant at times, quite honestly. And in this season, it's just I don't know. You just don't see it. By the way, before we go any further, Aslan, I want to point this out. I don't know if you can hear it, but Brady, as we record this show, is taking a shower.
I can't hear it, no.
This has to be, I believe this is the first time in his life that he's actually taken a shower.
Without you telling him to?
On his own accord. Without being told to. So my question for you is, how bad must he have smelled for him, 12-year-old boy, for him to be like, you know what, I got to take a shower. It's like a dreary Sunday. I don't know when the last time he showered now that I think about it, which isn't good. But how bad must he have smelled to do that? But anyway, hey, good for him. He's growing up, right? He's showering on his own.
I think you rule with an iron fist. He knows he can't talk when you're doing the podcast. He's probably bored. He's like, I might as well take a shower. I think he probably still smelled all right.
Nothing else to do. Yeah, that could be it.
He still smelled all right. Yeah, the problem just is that there's no one's coming to save this defense. There's nobody behind Marvin Wilson and Corey Durden that's going to be much better. I mean, maybe Robert Cooper. I mean, he had 12 snaps and graded out very poorly. He's obviously coming back from an injury. He's limited. Corey Durden was limited during fall camp with an injury. I don't know what maybe Marvin's battling something that we don't know either. But the bottom line, True Thompson and Malcolm Ray are not your solutions. People are talking about maybe you move Amari down. Maybe Amari plays Fox or whatever they have Janaris playing. But I don't think Amari is big enough to compete down that close to the ball.
Yeah, but then the counter to that is, well, Janaris is plenty big enough and it doesn't matter. If you're just going to go with size, then
I know, but
you can't keep running 11 out there.
But I don't think Josh Griffiths is the answer. I guess you try, though. I guess maybe, right? I guess that's because you've seen enough from him. Even if you don't see enough from these guys in practice, maybe you think that they'll turn it on in a game. I don't know how.
But again, I do think that maybe I'm just being silver lining. I'm being a homer. I'm trying to look for anything optimistic. Maybe the play J-Rob made on 4th down at the end of the game, the way he should have been playing the position all along, but to kick it wide, to flex out, to set the edge, to make the running back have to go around him, and then the pursuit by Emmett Rice and others to keep that kid out of the end zone, that was defended actually well. Now, it took 59 minutes for them to figure it out, but they finally figured it out, and that was the starter, man. That was their guy. That was the whole starting offense for Notre Dame, going for it right there, trying to send a message that, yeah, we're going to go for it. We could kick the field goal and go up by 3 scores, but we want to shove this in your face. And then for them to answer like that and J-Rob to make a play like that and to pursue like that, I don't know. Where was that the first 59 minutes? Yeah. That was what's so confounding. Just, again, I know it's just like in there. Look, we look around the country, nobody's stopping anyone. Like Alabama gave up 630 yards.
Florida
you saw
can't stop nobody.
Florida's got as bad a defense as Florida State, it would appear, close to it. But it's just how elementary it was for Notre Dame on Saturday.
It's like them running it too, right? I didn't see a lot of the Ole Miss game, but I think Ole Miss is airing it out with Matt Corral, who's actually a pretty good quarterback. So the fact that Notre Dame could do anything, but especially running, the way they ran, just these skating into the end zone untouched.
12 yards a carry in a half. And Tony Dungy kept saying, well, I don't know why they just run the counter.
They run the traps.
They don't stop it. Yeah. They're just, look, that's a huge hole. You bring that tight end over, you kick out the end, and it's going to be a huge hole there. And he was right every time. It was just so elementary was my biggest problem with it. People are going to give up yards, and they're going to give up points. It's 2020. But it was so darn easy. And, you go back to the Miami game. Like, the Miami game, they played a completely different style of defense. They kept everything in front. You know what I mean? They kept everything in front. They didn't give up any big plays. They forced a lot of third downs. But that was easy too. Like, which would you prefer? You're dying either way. You gave up 35 to both of them in a half. At Miami, they took 5 drives and they went down the field and scored 5 times. Notre Dame, you got a few stops in the first half. One was just a kid dropped a ball. But still, you got a few stops and you got a turnover. At the end of the day, it was still 35 points. So you can play back and keep everything in front and see if you can stop in the bend but don't break, nickel and dime down the field, hope to stop them in the red zone. Or you can play man-to-man, a little more aggressive. But if one guy misses his assignment or gets kicked off like DJ Lundy did on a block and Steven Dix isn't there to fill the gap, it's going to be a 60-yard run. Either way, you're still giving up 35 points and a half. There's nothing to do.
That's the thing. I don't know, like, to give the defensive staff credit for at least trying stuff, because the Miami game, they played predominantly 3 down linemen. I think Mike Norvell said against Notre Dame they try to play a little tighter in the box.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of left them maybe a little bit more susceptible on the edges, and Notre Dame kind of took advantage. So I don't know if we give the defensive staff credit for trying these different things or not being able to figure out what can work for these guys and just drilling. I mean, have some semblance of an identity.
Yeah, I think there's nothing that can work for these guys. I mean, bless Brendan Gant's heart. I do think he tried hard. I do think he was upset when they kept giving up yards and he was not making the plays he wanted to make. But Adam Fuller calls a great blitz. Notre Dame doesn't see it. Book doesn't see it. Gant comes from the secondary right into the backfield on a handoff, on a slow-developing handoff. It's just a handoff out of the shotgun. And he does not even.
He got a hand on him, but
how about getting a wrist on him and tripping him up?
Yeah,
making him at least stumble so the guys can rally on it. He's literally one-on-one in the backfield with a guy and doesn't even slow him down enough that he can't go get 25 yards. Like, what is Fuller to do? Like, even when you call the right defense and you have a guy there one-on-one, at some point these guys have to win one-on-one battles. And frankly, that Notre Dame guy is just a lot better than Brendan Gant. He's a really good running back, by the way. He can't catch, apparently, or he had a bad night catching the ball. But other than that, that dude's legit. He's really good. So is their backup. But I mean, you got to make plays, man. You got to make plays. Asante Samuel's in one-on-one position with that guy. And look, I thought he got pushed a little bit, but he also didn't react to the ball as well as he should. And I'm not gonna rip on Asante. He's been the best defender by far on this team. But you just hope that guys make plays. Jarian Jones got beat. Really nice throw, but he got beat for a 35 or 40-yard pass. Sometimes there's only so much a D coordinator can do if you're going to play that well. And I think the difference is last year, at least Barnett, when we talk about Barnett and this defensive coordinator, and I'm certainly not sold on Adam Fuller at all. But last year, at least Barnett got some good play out of his middle of his line. Yeah. Like, those guys were good for a while. There's nothing being played well other than one cornerback spot on this entire defense. And it's just,
it's the same
it's tough
personnel.
to watch.
That is curious.
Yeah.
Again, that's curious as to why the interior, again, continues
Did Odell forget how to coach? Is he forgetting to tell those guys to stay low?
Right.
Hands,
hips, feet. Hands, hips, feet.
I mean, he's been coaching the same way for 25 years. Last year, those guys could play. This year, not so much. Lovett's all right. But the other 3 guys, whether they're nursing injuries or not, just don't look like the same guys. And the linebackers, they can't play. Emmett Rice has some moments. Leonard Warner, I don't know what to do. Steven Dix has not been good the last 2 weeks at all. But, at least he's learning. At least what Leonard Warner is.
Yeah.
Steven Dix maybe by 2022 will be an all-ACC caliber linebacker. But Leonard Warner isn't.
I mean, not to pick on him, but I feel like maybe that was the beginning of the end with Jimbo, is how he would just talk so glowingly about Emmett Rice. And Emmett runs so upright. Like, I feel like he doesn't have proper use of his fingers and his hand. Like, just the way he tackles and puts his hands on players is not the way that you would expect like a linebacker to violently attack a ball carrier. But he's like maybe the best option they have at linebacker, and just it's far from adequate. It's just that's the concerning thing.
He is their best. I mean, unless you count DeKalen Brooks. When you look at the stats for guys that have, and DeKalen Brooks doesn't count because he only played 22 snaps, and Kevon Glenn's played 10.
I guess maybe Amari.
So you have Amari. Obviously, he's been the second best player on your defense, maybe the best, depending on how you want to judge it. And then the next line, he's the third-ranked player on the entire defense. 2. I'm going to give him 2 because I'm not counting DeKalen Brooks. Yeah. So it's Asante 1, Amari Gaynor 2, Fabian Lovett 3, Renardo Green 4. The next linebacker you get to is Emmett Rice at 18.
Ooh.
And then you go down to 29, that's Steven Dix. You go down to 30, that's Kalen DeLoach. You go down to 32, that's Leonard Warner. 33 is Jaleel McRae, and 34 is DJ Lundy. That's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of your 6 worst defenders on the team, according to Pro Football Focus, are linebackers.
Yeah,
and we know this guy can coach.
I don't think they hit. Yeah, I don't think they hit on Deloach. Kevon Glenn has obviously not played at all. Jaleel McRae, I thought maybe he had some. I
thought he had something to him, man. I did. The way he played that first spring, always around the football.
Yeah.
And he's played 65 snaps and he's graded out at 46%.
Yeah. And they went after a lot of linebackers in that 19 class and hasn't worked out anywhere near where they hoped. But
kudos to Amari Gaynor. And again, I don't. Is Nasruddin ever going to play? Like he's on
are
the
upset
field.
about him. It's weird. Like people think he's trying to opt out. They're telling him to hit the road. And I don't know, man.
Well, if he was opting out, he would have opted out.
Yeah.
And what's weird though is that do the injured guys usually go on the road? Like he was on the field. He was in South Bend.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they thought he was going to play or it was a game time decision. He said, no, I can't go. But I do think we lose sight of, he was a mess. As bad as the defenses were the last 2 years, he also hid some warts. And it's a lot of warts. It's like an old witch. There's warts everywhere. But he hit a few of them because he was such a good player. And now that he's not there and Travis Jay isn't there, we have to remember that too. Like that gives the front seven is the front seven. There's just nothing to love about that thing at all. But I think the back end had a chance to be a pretty decent back end this year. I really did. And then your 2 best athletes are both hurt. So you have to start Renardo Green, who's never played it, who, by the way, I think has a chance. He's a guy that at least plays hard, which is something. And he's physical. So I think he has a chance to be a player. And Jane Large Woodby, I'm to the point now where I don't think he has a chance to be much of a player. He never does. I don't even want to. I don't even want to get into it. But he's not noticeable ever. He just doesn't make plays. He's not physical. He's not fast, at least from the secondary spot. I don't know, man. I don't know if you don't be like, look, we got to have some more athleticism at linebacker. Sorry, Jaden. You can't play safety. You have to play linebacker.
Yeah.
Or move Hampsa there if he ever, puts on pads again at Florida State. Move him to linebacker.
Yeah, Travis Jay would help. Hamsa obviously would help even more. We'll see.
Those are big. The Hampsa's a big loss, man. That's an all ACC first round caliber talent. Yeah. At least a couple, a first couple round talent. And Florida State, if you haven't noticed, doesn't have a ton of those on the defensive roster. So when you lose one for the first 4 games of the season, that's a big deal. It shouldn't be this big a deal. But, him and Travis Jay are both big losses because of their physicality. It's not just that how much ground they can cover and the tackles they can make. It's how they make those tackles. Not a lot of hits being delivered by this Florida State defense.
Over-unders, by the way, congratulations to our winners. Nobody aced it. A whole bunch of people got 5 out of 6. Gort loves the Knowles. Robert Knoll, MO_Knoll 77. Bimini Bound, who used to be a pillar, but he's gone missing. It's all right, though, Bimini. And King V 99. Bimini's got a kid now, so he's living that hashtag dad life. Hashtag jealous. Hashtag holler. First one, Jordan Travis, rushing yards 52. He hit the over. You said over. I said under.
Booyah.
Making one up. Sacks on Ian Book, half. You said under. I said over. You are now 1 down. Longest run by a Florida State running back, 15.5. Really good line set by the Williams Sportsbook. 16 was the longest run LaDamian Webb. We both said over.
There we go.
Pokey Wilson catches 4.5. Both of us said under. He caught 2. Devontae Love Taylor, Pro Football Focus, pass blocking grade 76.5. He graded out at 70.1. It was under. You said under. I said over. You have now tied me in one fell swoop of a week, but total points scored 52. I said over. You said under.
I said under?
Yeah.
Come on, Jordan Travis. You're killing. I almost had a perfect week. I almost got myself a T-shirt.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I don't know who I'm going to mail the T-shirts out to. Usually it's like our grand number one winner, but everybody tied. So maybe Gort and Robert, since they were the quickest on the trigger. I'll try to figure that out and get back to you folks. Also, just from just being a Florida State fan, what made Saturday so great was the fact that Florida lost. And not only did Florida lose, they lost spectacularly. Yeah. And their coach showed his true colors. So congrats, Florida fans. You have your new Steve Spurrier. Without
what are you talking about, the 90,000 in the swamp?
Without the charisma,
right.
And without Mike DeBose being at Alabama, and without Jim Donnan being at Georgia. So enjoy that. Yeah, I mean, just what an abs. He is the most petulant. He just is. I'm telling you, this isn't me being blinded by my dislike for that university and everything they try to stand for. It's covering him for 4 years, seeing the way he handles adversity whenever his team gets it. He is the most uncomfortable coach I've ever covered after a loss. And for him to sit there and whine and complain that the fans at College Station made a difference as if they're not allowed to, and as if they had broken some sort of protocol by having fans in the stands. Like I think they had whatever capacity that everybody's kind of agreed to in the SEC. Like,
well, it looked a little more than it should have. It certainly didn't look like a third of the stadium. It looked more than that, but maybe it wasn't. But it wasn't full by any stretch.
Well, whatever. It was the reason why they fumbled the ball. It was the reason why they couldn't stop Kellen Mond and made him look like Jameis Winston for 4 quarters. And now Dan Mullen wants his stadium, his administration, to allow full capacity for the mighty Tigers of LSU that look equally terrible on defense, with Bo Pelini leading the charge.
Hey, so does that give you any
shut down by his? And the AD shut him down. And he's like, "Yeah, man, we're not."
Oh, did he? I didn't know that. He already came out and said that.
So,
yeah, because that's idiotic. But does that make you? Does that give you a little more solace in the fact that Florida and LSU can't stop anyone either?
No.
Okay. Or Alabama?
No. Lane Kiffin's really good. I mean, Jacksonville State moved the ball on this team. Georgia Tech moved the ball on this team. We saw what Miami did against Clemson.
How about the Satterfield? How about the fighting Satterfields, by the way, Aslan?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Have you hopped off the bandwagon?
Yeah, both feet. Well, they were up like 27-7 or something. They were up big.
Well, it was 21-7. Don't go crazy. It was 21-7.
Terrible.
That was a bad loss.
Yeah, so that's a winnable game. I get it. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way it is in a post-COVID world, or not post-COVID because it's still here. Maybe just in a pandemic world, to where the way these teams had to practice, maybe defense are just that far behind. Because LSU looks horrible on defense. So does Florida. So
does Missouri. Missouri won the game, and they gave up. They were 2 yards away from giving up whatever had been 48 points. And on top of that, what was the score of that game? Was it 45-41?
That sounds about right. I'll see if I can.
Because it was the fourth down. They were trying to score to take the lead. LSU scored 41 points and went 0 for 10 on third downs.
It is third down.
I mean, can you even believe that? I've never heard of that. Who has ever gone 0 for on third down and scored 41 points? So, yeah, they don't play defense in the SEC either, except in Athens. And if you watch that defense, holy moly. Now, and that's part of the deal. Like, when you talk about culture, and I know you don't like that word, and I get tired of saying it myself, but yes, they have some immensely talented guys on that defense. Immensely talented. But it's also the way they play. They play as if it's the last time they will ever step foot on a football field. And I'm talking about the way they beat blocks, the way they punish people with the ball, the way they attack the ball in the air. Man, I think if you look at Georgia's star ratings on defense compared to Florida State's, they're higher, but they're not nearly as much. They're not that much higher that the disparity should be so great on the football field. Does that make sense? Did I say that okay?
Yeah, I follow.
Yeah. The star rankings for these two universities on that defensive side of the ball aren't night and day. It's like night and early evening. But you would think they're played two different sports, the way Florida State looks and the way Georgia looks. And I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's strength and conditioning. I don't know if it's just Kirby makes them drink blood before the game. I don't know why they play the way they do with their hair. Maybe he literally sets their hair on fire. And so there's hair, they're still smoldering in the helmet. But they play angry all the time. And they're well coached. Like they usually don't give up, they don't have busts typically. And then you have Florida State, which has not quite the same talent, but dudes that were recruited by Georgia, plenty of them, dudes that could have signed with Georgia if they showed interest, and plenty of them. And they play like they're just out it's like a Thursday afternoon in a parking lot. It's a walkthrough, and I don't understand it other than the way those guys at Georgia are brought up in the system. This is how we play, and there's none of that happening at Florida State. That's what's got to change.
Florida lost, though. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Get back to the point that mattered. They did lose, and that was a big loss, man, because their offense is genuinely good, really good. Yeah. And the way this season is going, they still have it. They got to play Georgia, but I think other than that,
Tennessee might be able to give them a little bit of a scare.
Well, everybody should give them a scare as bad as their defense is. Yeah. And that's where Florida State is, too. Like, when you look at the rest of the schedule, other than North Carolina and Clemson, who they'll be favored they'll be underdogs in both those games. So if they do what they're supposed to do and lose those two games, they're 1-4. But Louisville, who else? Pitt, NC State, Duke, Virginia.
Yeah.
All those games, Florida State, if they can get stops, will win those games. I think if Travis or if Chuba turns out to be awesome and he's playing later in the year, I have all the faith in the world that this offense will put up enough points to win those games, somewhere in the mid to high 30s against those types of teams. But if your defense can't get stops, it doesn't matter. But I do think you have some coin flip games coming up. And it's sad to say, but when your defense is as bad as Florida State's has proven to be, every game, even against teams that recruit 1- and 2-star guys, is going to be a coin flip. And that's where Florida State is right now. But they're winnable, which I guess is something.
Thanks.
They're not beating Clemson, though. Yeah. Who, doctor?
Oh, yeah. Jeez. Yeah, Miami's not back either. Again, I only have room in my heart. There's some people out there that hate Clemson, Miami, and Florida. That just sounds so exhausting to me. But
you weren't upset to see Miami lose.
Oh, no.
And not only lose, to get housed, embarrassed.
No. To me, it's comical now. Like I can't even really hate Miami fans all that much because I know they have to be numb to it. Like they know they're not back. They fake it. Yeah, they know. How many times can you be back and constantly get embarrassed?
Yeah, and the thing is he ain't going to be there next year. The quarterback is the difference. That's why they've been so good. But he's not coming back. Well, heck, maybe he is. Who knows? Maybe with the eligibility things he is. But you assume Derek King's not going to be there next year, and then you go back to being just straight up Miami, 6-7, 7-6. Yeah. This was your chance. Rainy night, Clemson, team looking ahead, didn't even look that good against Virginia. And then I think I looked it up, Aslan. Clemson had like 33 first downs, and Miami had 9.
They had 4 at one point in the fourth quarter, I think.
Yeah, they're one. Yeah, so they had one touchdown on a blocked kick, and then Derek King had a long run that set up a field goal, and that was it. That was the offense. So Lashley went back to being, he got embarrassed by Venables.
The guy that was exiled to UConn.
Yeah. I mean, he's still good. Don't get me wrong. He deserves credit for how they've looked against Louisville and Florida State. It just turns out that Louisville and Florida State have two of the worst defenses, maybe in the history of civilization in any sport. Like worse than like France in World War II. Like France is that's what they are. They're like France in World War II. Just our tanks can only go backwards. You can have it. Just don't shoot. That's basically what Florida State and Louisville play. How they play defense right now. A little shot at France too.
I know. Oh, come on.
Man, Wake Up Warchant gives you everything.
Yeah. Shout out to Mike Tirico. Didn't realize he was a fan of the program, but was talking about Chubba Purdy. He's like, oh, yeah, and there's people say that he might be the next big thing. I didn't realize Mike listened to the show. Thanks for elevating us and using us as part of your research. We do appreciate you'll get a
We would have
t-shirt
appreciated like an actual shout-out. But Mike, we know you're listening. He sends me texts every day about his favorite lines, too. So, by the way, little-known story about Tirico. Did you know he was kind of, at least early back in the 90s, he was he was a big old creep at ESPN.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I didn't know if that was common knowledge anymore. They did a good job of kind of pushing that. But I read that book, and, man, he was a creepy stalker guy.
If that would happen, if it would have been around this day and age, if Peyton Manning, do you remember like Peyton Manning? Did something very.
Yep.
He wouldn't be doing nationwide commercial with America's favorite cousin, Brad Paisley. You know.
You're right. But hey, I do like Tirico. I think he does a really good job at everything he does.
Oh, he was sloppy as all. He was like talking about Tamori and Terry like. He was like, oh, completed to Travis. Like he was getting their names confused.
Oh, yeah, and he goes for Travis. Yeah. And then Travis takes a shot to Travis, something like that. Yeah. He also called him Keyshawn Helton on the touchdown.
Yeah.
It's like, man, how can you confuse those two bodies if you've done any research? Yeah. But still, I know I just said what I said. I still like him overall as a podcaster. I think he does a good job.
He's a pro, man.
And Dungy, I thought Dungy was good, too.
Yeah, that was it was a good broadcast. I thought it was just hilarious. Like it hit zeros on the clock and just like, that's a wrap from South Bend, Indiana. Final score 40. They were like, we're done.
They were out the door. I don't even know if Tirico was still in the booth.
Yeah.
By the time they the clock hit zeros, that was funny.
All right, man. All right, we're going to talk.
Brady's still in the shower, by the way.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, maybe he discovered something, and that's why.
We're not going there.
Hey-o.
I think he listens to his iPhone up there, but
okay,
it's
just jamming, feeling the groove.
Yeah. I mean, it's just my water bill, right? Who cares?
All right, that is a wrap. We're going to speak to Coach Norvell and the coordinators. Maybe I'll try to make Adam Fuller feel uncomfortable so that you all can feel more happy about things going on with your favorite football team. We do appreciate you listening. We'll be back with another full program on Tuesday. Do stay connected to warchant.com. We'll have a full breakdown of the comments, everything available on the website. And shout out to Ira. Hopefully he's back in Tallahassee by the time this is being published. Flew up to South Bend, one of the only outlets that were up there. So shout out to the big dog. Thanks, Corey. Great job as always, friend.
Thanks, Aslan. I appreciate it. You too, buddy.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.